Hi, my name is Corinne Taccone, and this is Intersection of Me. So we're going to start off by defining social class. So based on the book definition, social class is a system of stratification based on access to such resources as wealth, property, power, and prestige. That's on page 181. So for me, I would identify as middle class. I came to this conclusion based on the US social class ladder. That's page 182. So I came to this conclusion because my pay is more than working class, but slightly less than middle class. The only true degree that I've obtained is a high school diploma, but I have education and certifications that place me in what could be considered a highly skilled job. As far as my sex, gender identity, and gender expression, based on the book definition, sex is an individual's membership in one of two categories, male or female, based on biological factors. That's page 241. Due to the primary and secondary sex characteristics that I possess, I am identified as female. For my gender identity, the definition is the physical, behavioral, and personality traits that a group considers normal for its male and female members. That's page 242. So for me, I identify as a cis woman, indicating that my sex and gender correspond. I found that definition on page 244. So basically what that means is I was born a female. I identify as female. For gender expression, the definition is an individual's behavioral manifestations of gender. That's page 244. So for my gender expression, it would be feminine, meaning that I look feminine. I have long hair, I like to wear makeup, I wear women's clothing, I get my nails done. I also choose feminine scents such as like floral or fruity. I tend to be more emotional. I tend to take on more of the caretaker roles in my home. And so as a society, these things have been identified as feminine. So as far as my race, definition of race is a socially defined category based on real or perceived biological differences between groups of people. So my race would be white. Based on our society and the way that society views people, it would be my complexion. My complexion is very white. I have facial features that are more white presenting features. So anybody that looks at me and sees how I am, they would see a white person. For my ethnicity, they wouldn't necessarily see this. So ethnicity is defined as a socially defined category based on a common language, religion, nationality, history, or some other cultural factor. That's page 212. So for me, I would identify as Italian American. My family immigrated from Italy 4 or 5 generations back. I actually traced my lineage and they came from southern Italy. So the way that my family kind of represents this is mostly through our food. So we have the traditional Italian family dinners where we have the spaghetti and the lasagna and all of the pastas and the good things. The desserts that we eat are typically Italian style desserts like the Italian wedding cookie or things like that. So another status that I would kind of describe myself as would be white collar. So basically with this, the definition is a description characterizing lower level professional and management workers and some highly skilled laborers in technical jobs. That's page 183. So using this definition, I kind of correlated it to my current job. I'm currently a paramedic. With my association to EMS, a lot of people would kind of associate with blue collar, but I personally don't think that's accurate. I think it's more of a white collar job, because with that job, what people don't realize is with paramedics, we are highly skilled, highly trained. We have rigorous courses that we go through in order to obtain those certifications. And so we kind of are specialists in our craft. So overall, I would say that I'm in a dominant group. When weighed, all factors except for my sex, gender identity, and gender expression are considered dominant. So with this, a minority group is a social group that is systemically denied the same access to power and resources available to society's dominant groups through its members, though its members are not necessarily fewer in number than the dominant groups. So that's page 215. Also, dominant group has power, resources, and representation in social institutions. So that's page 215. With the definitions considered, I personally may not get the same exact treatment as a dominant white man, but due to my social class, race, and ethnicity, I will be afforded things that will not be available to people of lesser standing. So I can get healthcare, I can get food, I live in a nice house, things of that such. So basically, as far as my social class, race, and ethnicity, I see these things as advantages. I'm paid well with my job that has benefits. Therefore, like I said, I'm able to afford decent housing, healthy food, medical care, and some luxuries. I'm also a white Italian American, so this affords me some luxuries based on how others view me in public as well as in the workforce, because of some outdated bias that still stand in a lot of ways, believing that white is a superior race. My ethnicity allows me the same advantages because although I'm not the traditional European American, I'm viewed as the same because I'm not of Hispanic or Latino descent. My gender identity, sex, and gender expression are still kind of seen as disadvantages in a lot of ways. I am a feminine cis woman, which in traditional views of America kind of means that I should be a stay-at-home wife raising children. Women have made some stand in the workforce and have taken their place in higher paying positions and leadership positions. But as the world still stands, if my resume and a male counterpart's resume were identical, my male counterpart would be viewed as higher value due to the mentality placed on society that has kind of made males seem as harder workers and more reliable. The world is changing, but as things stand, being a woman is still a disadvantage to true equality. So as far as acknowledgement, celebration, and empowerment for minority groups, one of the things that kind of stood out to me was George Floyd. So after the death of George Floyd, I remembered the wave of support that the Black Lives Matter movement received. I remember I didn't really understand what was going on at the time, didn't understand why this specific person was important. I was overseas and just kind of started doing some research and things like that. And I realized it was acknowledgement of the Black community and the injustice that they face with police brutality. I followed along and realized that this movement was gaining so much attention and that it was actually changing some things. No, things still aren't equal across the board, but I remember officers being involved, being charged, and persecuted, and I remember other lawmakers across the state changing policies to try and seek some equality. As far as celebration, when I think of that, I kind of think of the LGBTQ community. So they have their Pride Week. So this is kind of a week that they take to celebrate themselves, celebrate their differences, and support the rights of their community and the members of that community. So these members have been pushing for recognition and equal rights year after year. I remember as a child, it was not something commonly talked about or supported very often, but now retail industries have become big supporters of this group by adding merchandise supporting the Pride festivities, as well as gender-neutral clothing, which is actually a huge step that people in more dominant positions have taken. And if it continues across all retail stores, it'll push for more change. When I think of the word empowerment, it kind of leads me back to the women's rights movement. So this was a movement that happened in 1960s and 70s that saw equal rights and opportunities for women. This movement empowered women across the nation and allowed them, as well as male counterparts, to view them as more than just a housewife. The movement was organized and run primarily by women, but it did create some change. Employers were allowing women into the workforce to fill jobs that were traditionally held by men. Higher education was opening its doors and allowing women to pursue different degree paths, and lawmakers were passing laws to aid inequality, such as Equal Pay Act. So ultimately, the only way the structural changes can occur is through the dominant members aiding in change. The biggest changes seen across the country have involved lawmakers passing laws for equality, just treatment, and things of like nature, which has helped. Women are much more advanced in their independence than they were in the 50s or 60s. Police brutality has been addressed in many areas to try and correct the issue. LGBTQ members are getting recognition and being celebrated for their differences instead of constantly changing. Things appear to be trickling in the right direction, but still have a long way to go. I believe the biggest step that an individual can take, especially one in a dominant group, is education. The members of this group may not fully understand what it's like to be a minority, but the dividing gap is a lack of education, or just education revolving around old stereotypical thoughts. Once education is found in an individual, they may be able to see things in a different light. They will be viewing the world in a new lens, which leads to further change, because maybe they give this person that they previously would have turned away the job. Maybe they become involved in the community by donating to the less fortunate. Maybe they talk to the man on the street and find a friend in a place that they typically wouldn't. These small things can lead to big changes because laws can only change so much of the world. It is up to the people of the world to change the thoughts that have been ingrained in order to make the growth that will truly impact the nation.